What's up, folks? Coming back with another video, and in this one I want to talk about soft boxes. And when I say soft boxes, I'm not talking octaboxes. I'm talking about your rectangular soft boxes, why I use them and when I use them. And the hope of this video is to encourage you to think outside the box a little bit. Now, when it comes to modifiers, specifically like softbox style modifiers, most people and most photographers gravitate towards octaboxes. And one thing that you'll very commonly hear is that people prefer the circular catch light in the eye, which I totally understand that. And in a lot of cases, I agree with that. You'll also tend to hear that people will go with octaboxes or deep parabolics because the light wraps around the subject more. And in some cases, in comparison to a traditional softbox, that could be true as well. But I don't think that that's a hard, fast rule. And I think people tend to go to that without thinking about the benefits of a traditional softbox and what a traditional softbox can offer. Now, let me touch on the softness of the light first. I think when people tend to say that octaboxes wrap around the subject more and the light is softer, I think it's because they're generally comparing it to your traditional softbox that's a lot smaller. A lot of times you'll see people using your 2 foot by 2 foot square softbox or something of that size where it's relatively small in comparison to, let's say you have a 36-inch octabox or 48-inch. In that case, you're getting softer light with the octabox simply because the light source itself is bigger. If you had a 4 foot traditional rectangular or square softbox, that light is going to wrap around the subject just the same way that an octabox would, because the light is so big in comparison to the subject that light is still going to wrap around. So you don't inherently get wraparound light and softer light just because it's an octabox. It's really the size in relation to the subject that really dictates the softness and the wraparound and how you place it. So I wanted to touch on that first, but more importantly, let me jump into why I use a traditional softbox. Now, this is a big one. This is a 3 foot by 4 foot softbox, okay? And the reason, or when I typically use this, is when I am shooting indoors. Now, let me touch on the fact that people like circular catch lights. Well, when you think about it, a circular catch light makes sense when you're outside because the light that we're used to seeing is the sun, and the sun is a circle. So when you see a circle catch light when you're shooting outside, that makes sense. The brain processes that as normal. But whenever you're shooting indoor, whether it's an environmental portrait or you're just shooting in a studio session, when you're indoors and you have a circular catch light, that's really conflicting because most places don't have circular windows. So that's why I love to use this type of softbox when I'm indoors, because it allows me to not only replicate window light, but then I get this nice rectangular catch light in the eye that also resembles a window. So when I use flash, I like to use flash in a very natural sense. Now, I know creatively, a lot of people like to do you bring your ambient exposure way down and you light your subject. That's a very popular look right now. I personally have never been a fan of that. I'm not knocking it at all. I've seen some amazing images that were taken that way, but that's never really been my style of shooting. I like to use just enough flash to light my subject to where everything is balanced. I prefer to have my flash seem like I'm not using flash at all. Okay, so I'd always like to replicate the light that I have. So if I'm indoors and there's a window, then I want to use a softbox that can replicate that window, and I'll generally place it in the same position of where my actual natural light is coming in so that that light looks natural. So instead of just going to an octabox because you like the circular catch light, I know that is appealing to a lot of people, I would encourage you to think about where you're shooting and what type of natural light there is, and then pick the modifier that best replicates and resembles the natural light source that you have in the scene. Now, let me be clear. If you're being creative and you're doing something creative, that's completely different, okay? I do creative shots to where, you know, it's 100% flat. You know, I'm not trying to balance it with the ambient, and that's totally fine. I'm not talking necessarily when you're getting creative, but I'm just saying in general, try to match your modifier with the light source that you have naturally. Now, I will say, when you're doing something like this, you really do want a big one, okay? So that's why I have a 3 foot by 4 foot. If this was like a small 2 by 2 or, you know, a 1 by 2 or something like that, I'm not gonna get as soft a light as I would like to have. And the whole point of really using natural light is because if it's good and you have a good source and it's nice and soft and you have that nice wraparound, and you can really achieve that with the softbox of this size. If it's a smaller softbox, that light is gonna be a little bit more harsh, a little bit more specular. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if you wanna go this route, it does work to have a bigger one, but the same thing applies for Octaboxes as well. Another reason I like to use this that I just thought about is when it comes to feathering the light, I like to use a rectangular softbox more when I'm feathering, just because I like this straight edge. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions with feathering is that you get this softer light when you feather, and that really, it's not true. When you feather, you're ultimately making the light source smaller, okay? So right now, if this was the light, if you were the subject, this light is facing you, so you could see how big this source is. As I start to turn it away this way, you can see from what you can see, you see less of the diffusion panel up front. The light source really is getting smaller. Normally when you feather, you're really feathering more so to control the light in terms of where that light is hitting, what you're lighting up. That's what you feather for. So if I was the subject here and we had the background back here, if you didn't want light hitting the background, instead of having the light facing me, you would feather it to be more this way. So then that way the light's not hitting the background, but that does affect the light that is falling on me. But when it comes to feathering, I tend to like just this long straight edge. I can get, in my opinion, a more clean type of feather, and I just like feathering with these. You know, a lot of it is up to what you like, okay? I'm not saying that how I do it is the be all way and it's how you have to do it. Not at all. I just share how I do things just to give you ideas and to give you ways to think of how you could do things a little differently than how you do. If you prefer to use Octaboxes and the ones that you have, you love the light and you work well with them, that's totally fine. Use those. But I do encourage you to branch out a little bit, right? As photographers, we should always be branching out and trying to learn and trying to do different things. I still try to learn all the time. And so that's really the point of this video, is to just challenge the way you think and don't necessarily go with what everyone else is doing. Kind of dissect it. Think about why they're doing it and then see what makes sense for you. So again, I love this softbox because it's like a big window. And when I'm shooting indoors, I can make it look like the light that I'm using is window light. So it looks very natural, very pleasing. I can get a nice airy feel. I just love it, but this is a big one. So that's it. I hope this was helpful as always. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, you know the drill, drop those things down below and I will most certainly get to those and answer them. As always, continue to be safe, continue to be healthy. I know the numbers are going up, so I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. I need everyone to do what you're supposed to do, because who knows what they're going to try to do if these numbers keep going up. So do your part, wear your mask, do your social distancing, get out and shoot however you see fit. And as always, until next time, take care.